Wurfel Luxuriate Hour.
Hi, this is me Jane on 94.3 Radio 1. I'm at an absolutely beautiful office space, and when I look outside the window, there's a lot of green, and this is the Wurfel Luxuriate Hour. Well, every single year I've been doing something very special with Wurfel. Last year I was at the Wurfel studio in Bhubaneshwar, and I absolutely love that. But this year, since the show has taken a little bit of a twist on finding out interesting stories and speaking to interesting people every day to inspire you guys. I have Smaran Mallesh who's joining us on the radio today. He's the co-founder of Cadence Architects, and I'm sitting right across him. And first off, you have a beautiful office space. Thanks so much for having me here.
Hi Jane, thank you for coming over here and doing this with us. I think it's going to be fun.
So if you had to, just give us a timeline of your life, a little bit of what you've done and your design story and how you've gotten here to this beautiful corner office, what would that sound like?
Okay, so it goes a long time ago, many moons ago, when I was back in school. I think my formative years had to do with, my mum being a homemaker with a very strong style sensibility in terms of decor and what she wanted to do. So the house was filled with magazines, that had to do with decor and furniture and interiors. And my dad was an industrialist, he was an engineer. So there was a lot of science, there was a lot of tweaking around with things. And so for me, in my formative years, those two influences, my parents, somehow for me in the end was like science and art coming together. And I think that is what architecture is. So, that's where it all started. And it was, by the time I finished high school, I knew that I wanted to be an architect. And what's really nice is my partner at work, one of my partners, has been my classmate from kindergarten. So we've literally been in the same room for many years now, and we both finished our undergrad together. And that's where we met Vikram, our third partner. So Narendra is my second partner, my classmate from school. And the three of us realized that we have some sort of a common shared sensibility of what we think architecture needs to be. And so we decided to start Cadence. And just when we started, I decided to go and do my master's abroad. I went to the US, I studied at Ohio State. I was lucky enough to do two study abroad programs in Europe. I got to travel, I got to see a lot of stuff that kind of stayed with me over time. And then I came back and joined hands with these guys, and we've been running Cadence for the past 15 years now.
That's amazing. I mean, the one thing that I see from your story is the fact that, friendship and brotherhood, that is something that triumphs over all. And I've recently, spoken to so many people who've said that when they've started a business, the core of the business is the people. And somehow I think you've nailed that right? Is that something that you would agree with, like the Holy Trinity, the three of you?
True, but if I just say the Holy Trinity, then the rest of my office is going to be extremely unhappy. So, there have been, we did have a dream, we had a vision, we had the drive, we had the passion, and then we found lots of amazing guys on the way who've stayed with us for many years. And a collective dream, it sort of pervades through the rest of the office, and we are 40 strong, and each one of them feels the same.
Fantastic. So from 3 to 40, that's a fabulous sort of progression. This is the Wurfel Luxuriate Hour, and I have the Wurfel team again here with me. Can I get a woohoo? This is the Wurfel Luxuriate Hour, and luxury for everybody today has different sort of connotations, meanings and layers. What according to you is luxury?
Yeah, it's interesting that you talk about luxury in the times that we are in, trying times I might add. And to me, luxury really means, it has two aspects to it. It's comfort and it's pleasure. And and I always tell my clients that whether it's a home or it's an office, it's always about utility and then there's pleasure. And you always have to strike the right balance between utility and pleasure, or comfort and pleasure, to make it luxurious. So for us at Cadence, we believe in architecture being sensorial. We like spaces that are very haptic. So my ultimate sense of luxury would be a space that would really appeal to all your senses of luxury.
That's amazing. But, in terms of the spaces that you create today, I have been going to some beautiful homes and offices of late, and I've been noticing that people have their own specific or respective corners, or they have some sort of idiosyncrasy or something that is different in a building, in a space that actually makes it their own. How do you combine luxury with creating a space that is individualistic and that has a character of its own?
Yeah, absolutely. I think starting from the self. so to speak, I think every space or decor or whatever it is needs to be an extension of yourself. So it's just the way you dress, or the kind of art you like, or the kind of film you watch, or the kind of music you listen to, so it needs to be an extension of who you are. And when there is an individual and then there is a collective identity or a collective belief of what an organization looks at, and that needs to extend holistically into a space. But within this space, one needs to carve out individual spaces that are idiosyncratic, that are very personal, and then give them that sense of warmth.
That's amazing. Is there any one particular space in all these 15 years that you've created that still resonates with you as luxury, but also has a deep resonance with like who you are as a person?
Yes, and invariably it's always been spaces that are juxtaposed with greenery, so there is this built environment and there's always juxtaposed with this element from nature. And I think that harmony or that coexistence of the two has always been the most gratifying for me. And for me, regardless of what the space contains in terms of decor, the sheer fact that it's juxtaposed with nature and almost feels like you're in the lap of nature, I think is the most luxurious thing to do.
Well, Bangalore, lap of nature, not so much anymore. Do you feel bad about that transition in these 15 years? Or do you think that as architects, somehow you're trying to bring that back and bring the little, green back into your life?
We are conscientious. We are thinking in a sustainable way. We understand the damage we cause, and we try to kind of recoup in our own ways in what we do with our buildings.
Fantastic. Tell me a little bit about, for anybody who's listening in now and making their first home or maybe their second home and making it exclusive to them, to their taste, and to really, be one with their soul. What would be like a 5-point guide to actually keep in mind when you're making your exclusive home somewhere, you want to feel one with?
So I think there are no two ways about this. The perfect way to produce an important piece of architecture, it has to be the perfect collaboration between the client and the architect. Now the conundrum here is that the architect keeps repeating. It's the same architect for every project. But what's unique is the client. And I think exclusivity stems from there. So when we meet a client, we try to find out what makes them exclusive. What is that unique thing that they're looking for? And so it's about understanding their personality. So if you're looking at this from the client's perspective, they need to divulge their personality to the client, or to the architect. So first, pick the right architect, pick somebody whose sensibility you like, and then you have to figure out a way to communicate to them, to really tell them who you are, what you're interested in, and what you're looking for.
Point number 2, once you've established that connect or that soul connect, so to speak, with your architect and you have a plan, how exactly do you take it forward from there in terms of exclusivity?
I think the basis for this partnership is trust. And you need to trust this architect to then shape your requirement. So there have been instances where clients, because of their experiences of building before or from what they've seen across the world, to get over involved in projects. So my suggestion would be to step back, to tell them what you need, and then they can shape it for you. So it needs to be a negotiation. It needs to be a discussion, because the architect is trying to understand you and you're trying to understand your architect. And through that series of negotiations, things will emerge. One needs to really see what the protagonist is in the space. And then just like how you would curate a play, you have to have this protagonist, and then things need to revolve around them, and all these parts need to come together to form the perfect exclusive whole.
That is fantastic. But when you talk about exclusive homes, here I want to get down to the brass tacks. An exclusive home that you worked on, but a project that really excited you, something that made you feel really one with it. Is there something recently that you've done that you really associate with?
It does, for example, there's this house that we finished, and what we looked at when we were conceiving this house, given what the brief of this client was to find this idea of delight through architecture. And I think it's an interesting word. You use delight when you say this person has a delightful smile. It kind of warms your heart in a very special way. So we went for this emotion called delight. How do you make this piece of architecture that feels delightful, that makes you smile? Some curios do it, some artwork does it. Can architecture do it? And I think when we finished it, we saw that smile on our client's face.
It's all about just putting a smile on somebody's face. In case you're making an exclusive home, it's the Wurfel Luxuriate Hour that inspires you. Mr. Smaran Mallesh, a co-founder of Cadence Architects. I'm sitting right across him in his office, and the Wurfel team is here. Hi, guys! Hi! I want to find out from you, Smaran, as to how you feel about working with Wurfel. What's been the experience like, and what would it be, in terms of somebody listening in, making a home or creating their first home? How would it inspire them to be part of, this sort of a collaboration that you have?
So it's interesting because I have been associated with the founders of Wurfel for a very long time, close to a decade now. And what's interesting about their growth story is that it's based on a series of lessons they've learned. So if you look at Wurfel today, they've got a wide repertoire of things that people could go and pretty much do at their entire house. But it was not done in one shot. It was done through a series of learnings over the years. So they started adding things or adding chapters to this beautiful story over a period of time. And I think there's a lot of learning and knowledge over there. So the obvious things in terms of the network they have, the number of dealers, accessibility, uniqueness, the kind of range they have for their price bracket. They go from somebody with a modest budget to somebody seeking absolute luxury. And to get all of that in a Make in India concept is a phenomenal thing in terms of what they're doing here and how they're really rubbing shoulders and going pretty much head and shoulders above some of the other brands that have come into our country. So it's great to see them evolve as a brand. My experience as an architect or some of the experiences my clients have had dealing with them has absolutely been wonderful so far.
That's amazing. But any I'm always going to ask you an extra question. So any special projects that you've done with them in these last 10 years that stands out for you and that has made you smile? Because we talked about, putting a smile on somebody's face. So how have you had that smile sort of experience with Wurfel?
So I think one story that I can remember is a really close friend of mine who works in Amazon, is into supply chain and all of those things, lives in Seattle. When he wanted to do his home and I introduced him to a bunch of people and I recommended Wurfel, he was more than happy to deal with them and he has that kitchen. And so if I can satisfy that friend of mine, then they must be doing something right.
It must be a stickler for perfection and, hard to please, right?
Absolutely.
But you're in the business of hard to please, yeah?
We thrive in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, out of that pressure is born all of the, smiles that you were talking about. Thank you so much for joining us, the Wurfel team. Thanks, guys, for having me here. A big woohoo. Do you have a final shout out to Bangalore, though? I mean, in general, what is it that you'd like to say? It's been beautiful weather in Bangalore. So for everybody driving home, your final shout out, what's your motto of life that you want to inspire somebody listening in to the show today with?
Life is short, live it up, but be a little careful during COVID times. Let it be a little tempered. And then maybe soon, round the corner, I can see the light down the tunnel. So we'll wait till then.
Until we ramp it up, keep it locked. 94.3 Radio 1. Good night and God bless.